With ag producers feeling the effects of President Trump's trade war with China, it's more important than ever to strengthen relations with our existing trade partners while forging new ties with other countries. Market Journal's Bill Dodd is looking into upcoming trade missions with the Nebraska Governor's Office and the Department of Ag. Bill, what can we expect from these upcoming trade delegations?
Well, Troy, earlier this spring, Governor Ricketts announced an international trade mission to Vietnam and Japan. In recent years, Japan has been a very strong trading partner for Nebraska agricultural exports. In fact, just last year, we saw record beef and pork sales, with Japan accounting for 28.7% of all Nebraska beef exports and a whopping 56.3% of pork exports. Now, this counted for export sales of about $412.1 million and $262.7 million respectively. Now, this isn't even to mention the fact that Japan is also ranked as the #2 export market for all Nebraska ag exports, including corn and soybeans. In the news this week, it was announced earlier at the G7 summit in France that a new trade agreement between the U.S. and Japan was struck in principle, with both parties having hopes of a formal signing in September. Nebraska Farm Bureau President Steve Nelson said of the proposed deal, quote, "News that the U.S. and Japan are moving closer to a secure bilateral trade deal is great news for Nebraska farmers and ranchers, especially our beef and pork producers. Japan is a critical market for Nebraska and one that we've needed to find a better way to tap into since the U.S. opted not to be part of the larger Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership Trade Agreement." While we're anxious to learn more of the specifics of the pending bilateral U.S.-Japan deal, any agreement that opens the door for greater market access and puts our farmers and ranchers on a more competitive playing field with producers around the globe is a major step forward, end quote. Now, this news comes just days before Governor Ricketts is set to lead a trade delegation to Japan and Vietnam. While we know about the importance of Japan's markets to Nebraska's economy, Assistant Director of Nebraska's Department of Agriculture, Amelia Briney, says Vietnam is quickly becoming an expanding market for Nebraska ag producers as well.
We've had a little bit of a footprint for Vietnam for the past few years. We had a gentleman on staff that would go there and do some solo missions, but we've really seen a lot of movement on the beef side of the equation with the country of Vietnam. Our imports into Vietnam have increased over 100%, I believe, within the past year. We've been able to partner with USDA on an emerging market program there, which is a little bit of a pseudo grant program that's allowed us to do some really neat things there. And so getting the governor there, I think, shows a commitment to a country that has a lot of people, a lot of young folks there. They have a younger population. Their median is about 29 between the age of 35. And so tastes are changing, and we feel that we have a lot that we can offer that change.
While state officials are working on expanding our footprint in the Vietnamese marketplace, Briney says the state's ag department is still working on expanding to new markets that Nebraska hasn't really done much business with in the past, while simultaneously strengthening current ties with our more established trading partners.
Well, something that's on our radar for the Department of Ag is the country of Indonesia. There was actually a delegation that came back in March, I believe it was, of this year, hosted by Congressman Don Bacon, and they visited Schooler up in Omaha, and they visited the UNO campus up there, and the Department of Agriculture, as well as the governor, was able to meet with that delegation. It was the ambassador and then their Minister of Agriculture. So that's a country that's definitely on our radar, but for us, it's also about maintaining relationships. The trade landscape around the world is a little bit interesting right now, and so for us it's important to look for those new markets as well as make sure that we're maintaining those relationships with some of the folks that we've been trading with for a really long time.
According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Foreign Ag Services, agricultural export totals from the United States to Vietnam grew 57.8% from approximately $2.5 billion in 2017 to $4 billion in 2018. Beef exports alone from Nebraska to Vietnam went from $5.4 million in 2017 to $12.3 million in 2018. That's a growth total of 127%. Another trade mission coming up for Governor Ricketts is a mission to Germany. Officials from the Nebraska Department of Economic Development and the Nebraska Department of Agriculture will accompany Governor Ricketts and Nebraska businesses on the trade mission. The delegation will visit Berlin, Lower Saxony, and the Northern Rhine-Westphalia, and according to International Business Manager for the Nebraska Department of Economic Development, Cobus Block, with 1/10 of our total exports finding their way to the European Union, Germany is a big player in that figure.
Compared to, say, some of our other export destinations, Canada, Mexico, China, Japan, the EU is a top 5 destination, the 5th largest destination for our exports. And Germany is a major player in the European Union. So if you look at both the political sway that Germany has inside the European Union, but then also just as its size as a country,
demographically speaking, it's a sizable component of that market. So being able to get in front of people there from an export standpoint is very important. And then also from the just the relationship in general with Germany. German companies have a long history in the state and have contributed significantly to our economy.
Now, the first stop for the trade mission is Berlin, where the delegates will participate in business tours and government meetings. The delegation will then visit the Agritechnica Agricultural Trade Show in Lower Saxony, which is the world's leading trade fair for agricultural machinery. Now, with over 2,800 exhibitors from 52 countries, Kobus also tells me the Agritechnica Trade Show is a top-notch opportunity to get face time with industry representatives who may have an interest in bringing their business to North America. Now, this gives our representatives an opening to explain how setting up shop in the heart of the heartland can be beneficial to agricultural businesses looking to expand in the United States. Now, we'll be looking for more opportunities like these if you have any interest in joining a state-led trade delegation in the future. But for now, that's what I've got my eye on this week, and I'll send it back to you, Troy.